When he turned his back from shoulder to shoulder, it looked like as wide as the tailgate of a truck.
And just darkness, literal darkness, just came like all over, just all over me except where I was standing.
This thing let out the most blood-curdling, mind-blowing, spine-tingling scream that you've ever heard in your life, and it cut through me like a knife.
And I knew that they were going to take me. I just knew it. And then the next thing I can remember is being levitated.
Well, when I look in there, I see two big eyes staring back at me.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night.
But Mamie, in June of 1932, was murdered, and her body was found beside the road on Trace Mountain, or 22 Holden, as a lot of people call it. And her throat had been slashed from ear to ear. She had been shot in the head, on the left side of the head, 2 times, and her neck was broken. They found her purse, which had money, jewelry. Robbery was not the motive, in other words. And she was cruelly murdered. She was considered respectable during the day. She went to the women's club. She went to church. She played golf. But in the evening, she was a different personality. She was in reality a party girl, I guess you could call her. She frequented several places in Logan that the good ladies of Logan probably wouldn't have gone to while her husband was at work. Harry Robertson, as I said, was her landlord. She and her husband Jack lived in an attic apartment above the garage that Louise and Harry Robertson owned. And that was situated where the LB&T drive-through is now, is where their home was. That's kind of an interesting thing, I think. But I'm sure the rent wasn't very much, if you get my drift. And Harry Robertson is rumored to have helped Jack Thurman get a job, because Harry, not only was he a bookkeeper at the bank, he was also, I think, treasurer of the library, but he was also president of the Logan City Commission. So he had some pull there. Louise was his wife was homemaker, had 2 children, but she was like a volunteer in the community and played golf. She was a respected Logan lady. Their home was nice, and it was larger than most. So they had a boarder. His name was Oscar Townsend, and he also worked at the bank where Harry worked. And they also had a handyman who lived there for room and board and just did odd jobs. He drove the car, washed the dishes for Louise, took care of the dogs. Harry was a big fox hunter, an avid fox hunter. And Clarence Stevenson, his handyman, drove the car for him, took him hunting and helped, and took care of the dogs. Clarence was a very short-statured man who had been injured in 2 separate coal mining accidents. He had missing fingers on both hands, and he'd had a terrible head injury, which caused his nose to bleed just any time. He would just have instant nosebleeds. And he lived in the attic of the Robertson home. He used the basement of their home to shave and clean up and everything. He was a black man. So when he had to use the bathroom, he had to travel to the courthouse, the Logan courthouse
Oh, wow.
to use the bathroom. Now, that's an important point because on the night that Mamie was murdered, of which he was arrested for, he was ill. He had a stomach ailment, and the doctor had put him on some kind of a strong medication that caused him to have to go to the bathroom often. So he was at home, and then he would have to go all the way over a block away, use the bathroom, then he would come back home. So the man was short, small, sick, and he was a good guy, in other words. So when he got arrested, he and Harry both got arrested for her murder. And Harry was eventually released, but Clarence, of course, as we know, went to jail. The day she was murdered, Mamie, well, first Jack, her husband, left for work. He worked the night shift in Logan as a city patrolman. And he left for work around 5:30, something like that. And she left then shortly after, probably 30 minutes to an hour later, she left. And she was seen a couple of places around town, but the last time anyone saw her was around 9 o'clock. Louise testified at the trial that Harry had gone to work that day, came home, took their 2 children to Stallings to go swimming, and then brought them home and took his car, drove his car around the block, parked it in the garage, and then came home and proceeded to watch the fights, or listen to the fights. There was no television back then, but boxing was a big deal, I guess, a popular thing. Anyway, Oscar Townsend and Harry watched or listened to the fights. Louise in the living room, Louise was in the dining room, and Clarence came in partially through and listened to some of the fights. And then after that, they all went to bed. So, and like I said, Clarence was ill, so he had been in and out of the house. But Louise testified that she heard Clarence go upstairs, I think it's about 11:30 that night, to his attic apartment. Harry was also not just a bookkeeper at the bank or Logan City Commission president and avid fox hunter. He was also had a key to the local speakeasy.